Why is this absurd object still in your room, Jessica? Pointing at my ceramic pig bank on my dresser, my dad, Vincent, yelled. You're not 12. You're 22. It's embarrassing. As I watched him retrieve the bank that had been my most treasured item for the previous 10 years, my stomach dropped. The weight of it told the tale of innumerable birthdays, Christmas presents, money from babysitting, and profits from a part-time job that I had meticulously saved since I was 12. With each coin and bill, I got one step closer to my goal of launching my own company once I graduate from college next month. Dad, please be careful with that. I've been saving that money for my business startup, I added, trying not to panic as I spoke. Enterprise. He chuckled angrily. Are you referring to the ridiculous internet store concept that you frequently discuss? You must mature and confront reality, Jessica. The only member of your family with true academic potential is your sister Rachel. As usual, I felt the familiar sting of comparison. From Vincent's perspective, my 19-year-old sister Rachel was the perfect child who could do no wrong. While I had pushed my way through state school to earn a business degree while maintaining a 3, she was pursuing her junior year in communications at a pricey private university. 8 GPA despite putting in 20 hours a week at a nearby coffee shop. Dad, that money is the result of years of savings. I reached protectively toward my piggy bank and explained, I've calculated exactly how much I need for inventory, website development, and initial marketing costs. My blood ran cold as Vincent's expression changed. This was a look I had seen before, usually just before he made choices that would favor Rachel at my expense. The ceramic pig appeared brittle in his big hands, and I could see that he was holding it so tightly that his knuckles were white. Jessica, do you know what's wrong with you? For someone with your limits, your dreams are too lofty. While you're fiddling with toy banks and imaginary companies, Rachel has already received an acceptance to graduate school. His tone of dismissal was more painful than any physical impact. He turned the bank over in his hands as if assessing its value, and I watched helplessly as he scrutinized my life's wealth. An uneasy feeling formed in my chest as the afternoon brightness that streamed through my bedroom window began to fade. I knew deep down that something horrible was going to happen. However, I had little control over what Vincent had already made up his mind to do. Growing up in our Portland, Oregon, home, I discovered early on that Vincent had a distinct hierarchy. Rachel comes first, followed by his own wants, and me at the bottom of the list. When I was 8 years old, my mother died, leaving Vincent to raise 2 children who were treated very differently. I learned to be appreciative of hand-me-downs and public school education, while Rachel received private tutoring, dance lessons, and the newest clothing. My mother had given me the piggy bank as her final present before she passed away. She had muttered, "Save your pennies, sweetheart," during one of her last hospital stays. Preparation is necessary for dreams, and patience is necessary for preparation. I had heeded her advice and spent the last 10 years putting all of my extra money into the ceramic pig. Contrary to what Vincent thought, my company's strategy wasn't some silly fantasy. I had studied successful online stores, investigated e-commerce trends, and created a thorough plan for selling handcrafted jewelry and accessories over the course of 2 years. The $23,478 in my piggy bank was precisely what I needed to buy my first inventory, create a polished website, and pay for 3 months' worth of running costs while building my clientele. In contrast, Rachel had never expressed an interest in financial responsibility or entrepreneurship. Every time she called home to claim an urgent need, she always expected another payment into her checking account, and she spent money as fast as Vincent gave it to her. Due to our father's pampering of her every need, her Instagram feed featured pricey sorority gatherings, beautiful handbags, and opulent spring break vacations. I went on, "Dad, I've already contacted suppliers and identified my target market," in an attempt to dispel his doubts. With a hefty thud that made my pulse skip a beat, Vincent placed the piggy bank on my desk and said, "This isn't just a dream. It's a calculated business venture with realistic profit projections. You're living in a fantasy world, Jessica. Education and contacts are the keys to true success, not online shopping." Rachel is aware of this, which is why she is concentrating on her graduate school applications rather than pursuing schemes to become wealthy. My face burned with shame at the way he muttered, playing store. I had put in more effort than Rachel had, and I was able to sustain myself financially throughout college while retaining stellar marks. Each dollar in that bank stood for hours of genuine labor, genuine sacrifice, and genuine future planning. Vincent's dismissive tone and the calculating expression in his eyes were warning signs that I should have noticed. Instead of having a ceramic pig on my dresser, I should have stashed my savings somewhere safer. However, I had faith that even Vincent would not genuinely steal from his own daughter despite his partiality. Even in our broken home, I had faith that family meant something. I was going to lose everything I had fought so hard for because of that trust. But in the end, it would teach me resiliency and perseverance lessons that money could never have given me. When I returned home from my final college exam 3 days later, Vincent, Rachel, and my piggy bank were waiting for me in the living room. I realized right away that something disastrous had occurred when the porcelain pig sat on our coffee table like evidence in a court of law. Rachel was virtually jumping with anticipation, her eyes glowing with the kind of happiness that typically indicates she was going to receive something pricey. Vincent continued, "Jessica, sit down. We need to discuss your future," in a tone that conveyed the deceptive authority he employed when making statements he knew would anger me. I eased myself onto the couch across from them, my legs feeling wobbly. In some way, the piggy bank appeared smaller and less important, as though Vincent's presence had already lessened its significance. With hardly restrained delight, Rachel kept gazing between the bank and me as if she were witnessing the best part of her favorite movie. Vincent started, "I've been thinking about what you said regarding your business idea." And for a silly instant, hope blossomed in my chest. Perhaps he had changed his mind. Perhaps he now realized how carefully I had prepared this endeavor. Rachel needs more money for her last semester expenditures and graduate school applications. In addition to the hefty application fees, she will want funds for professional attire and travel for the interview. My chest was filled with hope, but it quickly turned to icy fear. Every instinct told me to grab my piggy bank and go as I saw Vincent's hands approaching it. However, I sat motionless, unable to comprehend what was happening quickly enough to respond. "No," I muttered as I at last found my voice. "Jessica, family means helping each other out. Dad, that's my money. I've been saving it for 10 years. Without saying anything more, Vincent picked up my porcelain pig and held it above his head. "Your online store idea is a risk we can't afford to take right now. Rachel's education is an investment in our family's future." When it struck our hardwood floor, Rachel clapped her hands together like she was watching fireworks. And I will never forget the sound it made, a piercing crack followed by the melodic scattering of years' worth of coins and bills over our living room. My hands trembled as I gathered crumpled 20s and rolled quarters. Watching Rachel count out bills with the efficiency of someone who had been expecting this windfall. While Vincent calmly explained that this was for the best and I would understand when I was older. I dropped to my knees, frantically trying to gather the scattered money. $23,478. All the money I had saved, earned, and dreamed of was gone in 30 seconds due to Rachel's greed and Vincent's selfishness. I didn't fight when I made the decision that would alter everything while kneeling on the floor of our living room, surrounded by broken ceramics and my dashed hopes. Instead of crying or pleading, I quietly started making plans for how I would make them both regret this moment for the rest of their lives. When I woke up the following morning, I was surprised by a weird clarity. Vincent had always overestimated my resolve. And Rachel had become so accustomed to unjust prizes that she never questioned whether she deserved them. So instead of experiencing the grief I had anticipated, I found myself studying the issue like a business problem that needed to be solved. I spent that first day contacting everyone I knew who might be able to lend me money, and Maya, my college roommate, agreed to lend me $800 from her summer work funds. These character faults would form the cornerstone of their collapse. After I explained my predicament to Patricia, my old coffee shop manager, she offered me $1,500. My Aunt Caroline, who had never appreciated Vincent's treatment of me, shocked me by offering $3,000 with no interest and no repayment date. "Your mother would be ashamed of Vincent's behavior," Aunt Caroline exclaimed angrily over the phone. "She always thought you had more drive than Rachel, and she'd want you to succeed despite your father's cruelty." In less than a week, I was able to obtain loans totaling $7,500 from friends and relatives who had more faith in my abilities than my father had. It wasn't the entire sum I required, but it was sufficient to start. Vincent observed with amused condescension as I applied for 3 company credit cards, carefully calculating how much debt I could handle while working full-time and living in my childhood bedroom. "I thought smashing your piggy bank would help you face reality." "I'm simply investigating options," I gently said, avoiding letting him see how his remarks hurt me and creating the impression that I was giving up. "I'm still chasing that internet store dream, Jessica." Rachel had already spent half of the money I had stolen on designer clothing for her graduate school interviews, so let him think he had effectively crushed my dreams. His presumptions about my defeat would make my eventual achievement even more pleasurable. She posted Instagram pictures with messages about investing in my future and being thankful for family support while parading around the home in pricey jackets and shoes. Every post seemed like salt in an open wound, but I took screenshots of them all for future reference. I relocated my headquarters to the neighborhood library, where I worked 12 hours a day on supplier research, website development, and marketing strategy. Without the security of my predetermined budget, I had to become more inventive and resourceful than I had ever thought possible. I learned how to negotiate better prices with wholesalers, found free marketing channels I hadn't previously thought of, and created cost-cutting techniques that would ultimately increase my company's profitability. 2 weeks after Vincent destroyed my piggy bank, I received my first order of inventory, which included 67 bracelets, 43 necklaces, and 24 sets of handmade silver earrings. These items were carefully chosen from 3 different artisan suppliers who agreed to extended payment terms in exchange for exclusive online distribution rights. On a Tuesday morning in June, I used the natural light from my bedroom window to take pictures of each piece, created interesting product descriptions, and established my website. Vincent found out about my activities when packages began to arrive at our house. "Jessica, what is all this junk? I believed that you were quitting this nonsense, as we had agreed. You stole my money and gave it to Rachel." "I never agreed that was acceptable," I said, carefully opening a shipment of velvet jewelry pouches. His face darkened with the typical fury I had learned to handle with caution. "I'm trying to help you avoid costly mistakes, so don't use that tone with me, young woman." However, I was no longer the submissive daughter who blindly accepted his choices. My desire for his acceptance had been burned away by Vincent's thievery, leaving behind something more determined and tough than he had ever seen in me. I was no longer attempting to win his favor or establish my deservingness of equal treatment. 3 days after I launched the website, a woman in Seattle bought 2 pairs of silver earrings for $68. And I felt more pride in that transaction than I had ever felt about any grade or accomplishment in my life. I was just determined to build something he couldn't destroy, no matter what it cost me. The orders began slowly, $5 here, $30 there, but each sale supported my company concept and disproved Vincent's claim that online retail was a pipe dream. This money was mine, won through my own effort and vision, untouchable by Vincent's partiality or Rachel's entitlement. I put all of my profits back into stock, progressively growing my product line and establishing connections with other vendors who had distinctive items I couldn't get anywhere else. While this was going on, Rachel was having trouble submitting her graduate school applications, even though she had my pilfered money to support her efforts. I overheard her sobbing to Vincent over rejection letters and unsuccessful interviews, lamenting the fact that other applicants were more driven and prepared than she was. Vincent comforted her by promising more money for interview coaching and application advisors, seemingly thinking that money could cure issues that called for real talent and effort. During one of these discussions, Rachel said, "Maybe I should take a gap year. I could use the time to build my resume and gain more experience." Vincent adamantly disagreed. He said, "We invested too much in your education to let you give up now. You're not going to waste this opportunity like your sister wasted hers." It was clear how he felt about both of his daughters. This transactional approach to parenting would ultimately lose him relationships with both of us. He saw me as a write-off who had already fallen short of his expectations and Rachel as an investment that needed to pay off. However, I was appreciative of his candor about my position at the time. By August, my online store was making steady daily sales. I had established a social media presence that drew clients from all over the nation, and a number of fashion bloggers had highlighted my jewelry in their postings. Above all, I had shown myself that I could create something worthwhile out of nothing, with only tenacity and imagination as my main tools. Vincent reluctantly acknowledged my accomplishment, making disparaging remarks each time packages arrived or clients called our home phone with inquiries. One evening, unable to ignore the proof of my expanding business, he remarked, "I suppose you're making a few dollars with your little hobby." "It's not a hobby, Dad. It's a legitimate company with real customers and actual profits." "Jessica, don't get carried away. A few internet sales don't make a legitimate business. Wait until you encounter significant competition or financial difficulties." However, I had already encountered the most difficult obstacle of all, starting over after losing all I had worked so hard to achieve. I was no longer the innocent young woman who trusted family members with her ambitions. Instead, Vincent's thievery had forced me to develop resilience and resourcefulness that no amount of stored money could have delivered. It wasn't just money. I had changed into someone who anticipated challenges and prepared for failures, who saw every setback as a chance to grow stronger and more self-reliant. People reacted differently to this new me, and they trusted my product suggestions. I was sleeping better, standing straighter, and speaking with confidence I had never had before. Even strangers seemed to take me more seriously, and suppliers appreciated my professionalism. Vincent's brutality had unintentionally produced the kind of person who could start a successful business in spite of family resistance and low resources. As fall drew near, I started preparing the reveal that would show Vincent and Rachel just how much their theft had cost them and how it had eventually affected me. By November, I had grown my business beyond jewelry to include handmade scarves, artisan soaps, and personalized gift boxes, all acquired from small businesses around the Pacific Northwest. And it was making more money each month than my previous work at a coffee shop had in 3 months. My website traffic was growing by 15% every month, and my customer base had expanded to over 2,000. The accomplishment was exhilarating, but it also showed how utterly Vincent had misjudged both of his daughters. 5 of Rachel's 6 graduate school applications had been turned down, and the one that was accepted came from a program that needed a significant amount of additional cash above what Vincent had already given from my pilfered resources, while my firm prospered. "I don't know what's going on." In a phone call I overheard from the kitchen, Vincent confided in his brother. "Rachel did well in the interview and had respectable test results, but these colleges continue to select other applicants. I'm beginning to question whether I made the proper choice regarding the piggy bank money when Jessica is continuously getting deliveries and calling about her online business." Even Vincent was starting to see the pattern of consequences his favoritism had caused. Rachel's failures weren't just bad luck or transient setbacks, but his uncertainty arrived too late to make a difference. They were the inevitable outcome of a lifetime of inflated expectations and unjustified rewards, so I decided it was time to push Vincent to have the conversation. I requested Rachel and him to have a family meeting on a Saturday morning in December. Rachel assumed I wanted to talk about domestic chores or Christmas arrangements. I opened my laptop to show you my business dashboard and said, "I want to show you something. These are my sales figures for the past 6 months." Vincent, however, was skeptical, as if he realized something important was about to happen. After deducting inventory costs and business expenses, the screen displayed gross revenue of $47,000 and net profits of $19,000. Rachel came forward to examine the figures with evident surprise, and Vincent's eyes widened as he absorbed the data. Vincent responded slowly, "This can't be true. You started this business with borrowed money after the piggy bank situation. How did you generate this much revenue so quickly? I quietly said, the same way I saved $23,000 over 10 years. Through persistent work, meticulous preparation, and perseverance in the face of setbacks. Rachel's face had become pale as she started to comprehend the ramifications of what I was demonstrating to them, but I assumed your business was merely a pastime. I looked directly at Vincent and said, you never said you were making real money. I learned not to share important information with people who might use it against me. Some family members can't be trusted with other people's dreams or financial resources. Jessica, if I had known you could actually build something this successful, I might have made different decisions about your savings, Vincent said, struggling to find the right words to describe the massive blunder he was starting to realize. No, Dad, you wouldn't have. Your choice was based on your perception of Rachel and me rather than our true selves or our potential. Rachel has squandered my money on parties and clothing despite not being accepted into graduate school. I created a company that makes more money each month than the salary of most individuals. Character, not luck or timing, is what makes the difference. The ensuing quiet had serious ramifications that none of us wanted to discuss. Rachel was confronting evidence that unearned money could not replace true ability or work, and Vincent was facing the truth that his partiality had subsidized failure while undermining success. I have an announcement to make, I said, bringing up another screen on my laptop that displayed forecasts for the upcoming year. And I was finally ready to reveal the full extent of what their theft had ultimately cost them. I'll be highlighted as one of Pacific Northwest Business Magazine's up-and-coming entrepreneurs under 25 next month. The piece will highlight how I used creative marketing techniques and little initial funding to create a profitable online store. When Vincent realized the ramifications, his face turned absolutely white. Jessica, what will this story specifically say about your company's funding? I just said, the truth is that after my father destroyed my life savings and gave every penny to my sister for her failed graduate school applications, I started with $7,500 in loans from friends and family. Rachel made a little choking sound, and the reporter was very interested in how hardship may sometimes generate better entrepreneurs than pleasant conditions would have created. You told a journalist about the piggy bank, about Dad giving me your money. The editor of the magazine was moved by the story because it shows how tenacity can triumph over betrayal by family, with the heading, From Broken Dreams to Business Success, How One Young Woman Turned Family Theft into Entrepreneurial Triumph. They intend to feature it as their cover story for the February issue. You can't publish something like that, Jessica. It will destroy our family's reputation. People will think I'm a terrible father, Vincent said as he suddenly jumped up, his face flushed with fear and rage. I'm not posting lies or exaggerations. I'm providing the documented truth about what happened and how I responded to it. People will think exactly what the evidence leads them to believe. I reacted coolly. The reporter had been captivated by my story, particularly the details regarding Vincent's partiality and Rachel's misappropriation of my pilfered funds. She had examined my business records, confirmed the chronology of events, and even conducted interviews with some friends who had given me startup capital following the theft of my savings. The story would be thorough, accurate, and disastrous for Vincent's standing in our society. This is retaliation, Vincent muttered, dropping back into his chair with the forlorn expression of someone who had finally realized the repercussions of his actions. The piece was published on a Tuesday morning in February, precisely 2 years after Vincent had destroyed my piggy bank. This is success, I corrected him. Revenge would be doing something to hurt you. Success is building something you can't destroy, no matter how much you want to. By midday, our phone was going non-stop with calls from friends, relatives, neighbors, and Vincent's business acquaintances who had read the article. The online version was being widely shared on social media, and Pacific Northwest Business Magazine had over 50,000 readers. As Vincent read his own remarks cited in the newspaper, his face twisted. Jessica needed to concentrate on actual objectives rather than idealistic ventures, and dreams require reasonable expectations. His evaluation seemed cruel and glaringly incorrect when compared to my real business achievement and his contemptuous statement. After learning that the story contained specifics on how she had used my pilfered funds for spring break trips, fancy clothes, and sorority dues rather than the educational goals Vincent had professed to promote, Rachel had secluded herself in her bedroom. "I never imagined it would be this public," Vincent remarked, presenting a printed copy of the magazine with my picture on the cover. Her Instagram posts were screenshotted and included as evidence of the frivolous spending that my savings had funded while I struggled to rebuild from nothing. I said, "Jessica, I was trying to help Rachel succeed. I thought you would find another way to pursue your goals. You were trying to help your favorite daughter at the expense of your other daughter." My phone rang with congratulations from suppliers, clients, and other business owners who had read the piece. The publicity is just people finding out what kind of sister and father I was dealing with. 3 separate venture capital firms expressed interest in backing my development plans, and other business owners offered collaboration opportunities. Vincent's theft had unintentionally propelled me into the kind of success he had never thought I could attain. Within weeks after the magazine article's release, Vincent's reputation in the Portland business scene fell apart. The retaliation was finished, and it tasted better than I could have dreamed. After realizing that he had undermined one daughter's legitimate business aspirations in order to finance another daughter's reckless spending habits, his insurance agency lost a number of significant clients who questioned his morality and judgment. Neighbors shunned him at neighborhood get-togethers, and professional colleagues who previously respected his viewpoints started keeping him out of networking meetings and industry talks. When her university classmates and sorority sisters found out that Rachel had been using money taken from her sister's decade-long savings effort to support her lifestyle, she was socially humiliated. When Vincent could no longer afford the additional cash, she was forced to withdraw from her one acceptance to graduate school. And the public disclosure of her involvement in the family's financial betrayal severely damaged her reputation among peers. Both father and daughter discovered too late that once a reputation was damaged, it could never be completely rebuilt. And they were cut off from the social ties and communal respect they had previously taken for granted. As I celebrated earning $100,000 a year from my growing web business, I thought about how Vincent's treachery had compelled me to cultivate the fortitude and inventiveness that gave my accomplishment greater significance than any inheritance or family support could have. I learned from the voyage that real success comes from the will to create something worthwhile despite all the challenges you face, not from resources or the approval of people. I wouldn't give that hard-won knowledge for all the money in the world.